afternoon, one and all. Welcome to a rather bizarre, rather special solo run, a true matinee edition of Show Business. It's me, Charles. Welcome to WILIscredia. Welcome to Show Business. Before you get settled in, why don't you click like, subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you're watching this on VOD in the future, comment down below. Let us know what your expectations were for the weekend, and did anything match, exceed, or fall short of those expectations? Because that would be an interesting conversation to have. Yeah, so Spider-Man Brand New Day opened worldwide, or it opened in Europe on the 29th of July, and I didn't realize that there were different release dates. Apparently in the US, it released on the 31st. I didn't know that until making content and realizing that I wasn't late to the party. I was technically early to the party, but yeah, people went and saw it. Not that anyone watched my review, but people certainly went and saw the movie. Opening weekend, as far as domestic is concerned, we're getting right into the July 31st through August 2nd weekend. And Spider-Man Brand New Day brought in $355 million on its opening weekend, and totaling worldwide at 972. I think technically they're reporting that as a 3-day, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's a 5-day, because international numbers usually take a little bit longer to get out there. So I'm not that it's taking anything away from the number. It's probably larger, if anything, but that 972 does include Wednesday and Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Still, it almost hit $1 billion in its opening 5 days. And nothing to sneeze at, the Odyssey in second with $51 million, and it is already at 912 worldwide. Toy Story 5 rounding out the top three. It brought in 6.8 million. It is already at 1.06 billion worldwide. Minions and Monsters in fourth with 5.8 million. It has a total of 449 worldwide. And Moana rounding out the top five. It brought in 5.3 million, and it has a total worldwide of 261. With this recent showing here between Spider-Man, The Odyssey, and Toy Story, the top three, all three of those movies, one of them already is, all three of those movies will be billion-dollar movies worldwide within the month of August. And with that, it's pretty fair and safe to say that the domestic box office is on pace to cross $10 billion for the first time since 2019. So the domestic box office hasn't reached $9 billion in any year since COVID. And right now it's on pace to do 10 billion, unless some sort of drastic disaster happens. I don't think that's going to happen, especially when you consider what's coming up in December. But absolutely incredible showing by Spider-Man Brand New Day. I don't know how to feel about this. I did see Brand New Day. I enjoyed most of it. But I don't know if this sends the right signals to studio heads. Why don't we go through the top 10 opening weekends of all time, because there's some more numbers to talk about. This is adjusted for inflation. Please don't mind the hecticness of this image. The movies on the right are first, third, fifth, seventh, and ninth. And on the left, it's second, fourth, sixth, eighth, and 10th. Avengers Endgame, if you're adjusting for inflation, still has the best opening weekend worldwide with $1.576 billion. That's in an opening weekend. Spider-Man Brand New Day, with its recent showing, is now second highest of all time with 972 million. Avengers Infinity War in third with 839 million. Star Wars The Force Awakens in fourth with 735 plus. Jurassic World in fifth with 730. The odd one here, I guess, is the fate and excuse me, the fate of the Furious with a 726 plus, and Spider-Man: No Way Home in seventh place with 720 plus million. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 with 719 plus. Captain Marvel, that's the head scratcher here. That's in ninth with 584 million plus. And Zootopia 2, another recent release, is the 10th highest with 577 million plus. I think the interesting thing here is the fact that most of these, all of these movies are part of a larger franchise or something quite like it. Avengers Endgame is the culmination of that run within its little franchise. Infinity War is like the precursor to Endgame, if you want to call Infinity War and Endgame a two-parter. That those two movies are the culmination of what dozens of movies leading up to that. The Force Awakens is a movie that it was a franchise that was kind of I don't want to say dead, but it was an awakening, and there was a lot of hype for that. Jurassic World was a similar situation, same year. Jurassic World reinvigorated the Jurassic franchise, and people drove in flocks to see both Star Wars: Force Awakens and Jurassic World. The odd one here, again, The Fate of the Furious, I believe that is the 8th Fast and Furious movie. We've had a couple of since then. I don't remember if that movie was meant to be the culmination of that franchise, but nevertheless, here it is in this top 10 list. Another oddball here is Spider-Man: No Way Home. That is the third movie in the Spider-Man franchise. There was a couple of movies in between Spider-Man and Avengers. If I'm not mistaken, that was right around the time for Doctor Strange. Harry Potter: Deathly Hallows Part 2, the culmination of the Harry Potter, 12, 8, 10, 8 movies plus. Another oddball here, Captain Marvel, although you can kind of put an asterisk on Captain Marvel because that was kind of the in-between movie in regards to Infinity War and Endgame. So I think it had some heavy-duty layover in between Infinity War and Endgame. It was kind of like that, we have to watch this as a placeholder thing. And Zootopia 2, just a borderline sequel. The thing about these movies, the noticeable difference, most of these movies perform really well internationally. And I think that is something to be circled and talked about. Fast and the Furious, those movies are very big internationally. You don't need to know the language to know that cars driving around and jumping and doing funny splits and things. It draws an audience, but the difference here between something like Spider-Man and Avengers is Spider-Man is kind of a big deal on its own. I think that the difference between Star Wars, the culmination of that, Avengers, a culmination of dozens of movies leading up to that, and Spider-Man's just kind of always been a big deal. It makes you think about what Sony was doing with Spider-Man leading into the merger with Marvel, because the Raimi Spider-Mans were doing well. This is before the MCU was technically a thing. And then, sure enough, movies like Iron Man, Captain America, they were lesser known superhero characters, and they still did quite well. I think prior to us having Spider-Man movies, Batman was probably the big character that like everyone knew. So people around the world know Spider-Man. There's a little something to relate to in Spider-Man. It's just a dude running around and saving the day, and he's doing simple things. He doesn't have special powers, or at least for the most part. Um, but Spider-Man is a character that you don't really need to put him together with any other featured characters. Around the world, people really know and like Spider-Man more so than Superman, which is kind of interesting. I think Superman is a distinctly American superhero, but a lot of these cases, they are internationally loved. And again, opening weekend, a total of 972 million, and that's 517 million international. The other thing that I think is interesting that maybe could be talked about in the chat, I have a poll open. Which movie will have a bigger opening weekend? Spider-Man Brand New Day or Avengers Doomsday? And you kind of have a cheat sheet because you know the numbers for Brand New Day. Essentially, what the question is Avengers Doomsday going to make more than $972 million opening weekend? And when you consider the fact that Endgame did 1.576 billion, it seems like it's a no-brainer. But again, the difference between Endgame and current day Avengers is that was a culmination. That was a well thought out lead up to that culmination there. I don't know if there's the same buzz behind the Avengers at this moment, although I certainly can be wrong. There's certainly some water to be held in the claim that the reason that Spider-Man had done so well this weekend is because we have a big deal, another Avengers movie coming up in 4 months. Within a year, we're getting another Avengers movie, and like something like Captain Marvel. I don't know how much of that is the case, though. Captain Marvel, it felt like you needed to watch that, like it was a puzzle piece between Infinity War and Endgame. I don't know how much of Spider-Man Brand New Day is like required watching for Doomsday, but we're going back 8 years now on people doing things where Marvel was just like uh, you know printing money. It was just a lock. You knew you would get a solid movie and people were going to go see it. I don't know if that's the case anymore. And if anything, the way Spider-Man has been performing progressively better and better in this new Sony Marvel relationship, it has done better and better and better, and both two times post um, COVID. So I think there's something to be said about the fact that Sony, when they work with Marvel and they kind of have this shared property thing, um, the Spider-Man franchise really does well. No matter how you feel about the movies themselves, they're well received. Um, the Spider-Man stuff since Endgame, both Spider-Man movies, well, actually both Spider-Man movies since um, COVID have done really well. They're well received, and I don't know if I could say the same thing for Marvel. It's this case where you go back and you look at like the amazing Spider-Man stuff from the early 2010s, or anything that Sony's been trying to do with their villains and Morbius and Madam Web. Um, Sony, whatever they've been trying to do on their own, not the greatest, but it seems like there's this. I don't know. There's these training wheels that Marvel is putting on Sony when they're doing Spider-Man stuff, and there's this give and take situation there where um I don't know, Sony has seemed to do well with the Kevin Feige molded version of Spider-Man. And I think if you were to go back 15 years, 20 years, go back to prior to Iron Man coming out, I think most people would say, yeah, I know Spider-Man. And it could just be from comics, it could be from cartoons, it could be from, I mean, I remember him in Marvel versus Capcom. That's a video game. Um, I think recognition is really important. And for as much as Batman does very well internationally, for some reason, the DC stuff just does not crack over a billion. Um, except I think in the case of The Dark Knight, which was a phenomenal movie. Um, there's something to be said for the fact that internationally, worldwide, um, Spider-Man is well received and people go out and see it, and it doesn't feel like it's something that you have to do homework and go, watch the 15 other things in it. If anything, my gripe with this most recent Spider-Man movie, while being conjoined with Marvel, it felt like it was too sprinkled with cameos and stuff to kind of feed the future narrative. Without going into spoilers, there's a couple of characters in the movie where it's like, yeah, this really feels like it needs to be um, a a table setter for whatever it is they're trying to do for Doomsday. It's not like this movie really is, I don't know, like a prologue to Avengers Doomsday. And that's the thing that I think is fascinating. I don't think, for as much goodwill as Marvel and the Avengers have kind of lost, and we're gonna have, or I'm gonna have egg on my face in December when it just destroys at the box office. Um, the Marvel movies haven't been doing as well. They're not easily bankable the way they used to be, but Spider-Man has just been getting better and better and more reliable and just sturdy. I I think there's something to that, and I don't know if it's international audiences, if it's American audiences, both audiences, the entire world had a very good time. I wouldn't be surprised if that number gets adjusted and it's close to a billion. But again, I would assume that that's counting Wednesday, Thursday as far as international is concerned, because those numbers are never very quickly updated. Usually it's about a week where the international numbers come in, and those are more often than not estimates, as this is. Does that Cameo Fest look like it's worth a billion? Which one? Superman isn't American, he's Kryptonian. Yes, he's a very American hero. America owns him, even though he's not from America. Um, yeah, like that's the other thing about Brand New Day. I I rather enjoyed the contained, down to earth stuff of that movie for the first hour and a half. Only in the like last half an hour or so does Brand New Day feel like something that is filling quotas with Marvel and holding up their end of the deal and making sure that why are you clicking on me at 11 a.m.? You volunteered to click. You didn't have to. Yeah, I can't explain it. It's just the scheduling thing. But good morning, Cody. Would you rather me text you at 5 a.m.? Is a better question. um, but yeah, I think it's I don't know, like I don't think it's star power when it comes to why did this do so well. I think the character is a big deal. I think people like Spider-Man. They haven't really been let down again in this modern era of Star Wars. They've definitely been let down in the modern era of Star Wars. In this modern era of Spider-Man, they haven't really been let down. All of the home movies, The Homecoming, Far From Home, and now Brand New Day. I wonder if they're going to do Days, um, Brand New Day. I can't think of any of them. But those Spider-Man movies have been solid, and if not progressively stronger. Uh, Again, I don't think of any of those movies as like 5 stars or anything, but sometimes when you're just going to the when you're going to the theater, you just want a good time, and there's 2.5 hours worth of a lot of stuff in the Spider-Man movies, and I don't know if the reputation of Marvel is like it's like an inverse of what Marvel was in the 2010s and what Sony was in the 2010s when there was like Amazing Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2. It really was kind of sloppy with some of the stuff they were doing, but Marvel was just so solid. And I think that the inverse is happening at least recently. Like even solid Marvel movies just don't do very well. 500 million is kind of like a Captain America movie didn't make $500 million last year. That's shocking. Um, Cody says Spider-Man movies are all good and pretty well received. Even the couple arguably bad ones are watchable misses. Yeah, what I mean is in the financial sense. Like if you were to tell me in 2012, oh, a brand new Captain America movie will not make $500 million, I'm like that doesn't make sense. Um, and in the same breath, if you were to tell me, yes, a Spider-Man movie is going to make close to $1 billion, I don't know how I'd feel about that, especially in the Andrew Garfield era, more so the Jamie Foxx. Um, but yeah, I think there's something to the character, and in this recent go round, uh, Sony hasn't let us down with Spider-Man. When it comes to, I mean, the Venoms are kind of okay. Um, the other stuff they're doing, no, far less um, something that you could call okay. Cody says, I think it's got a nice bump because it's been a very underwhelming summer. I think people have been waiting for a movie like this for 3 months. Yeah, I think the family stuff has been solid. Toy Story 5 already at 1 billion. If anything, like Toy Story 5 was getting all of the family money, and Minions kind of was a letdown. Moana tanked. But like, yeah, right. I think young boys and early preteens and young boys needed something to go to the theater to see, and this does check a lot of boxes, and it's got a bunch of little subplots in it where you can kind of go for a bunch of different reasons and kind of be pleased. I think if anything, that's another plus for Brand New Day, where you know it's kind of a personal story. It's about Peter and being forgotten, and it's got vague obsession vibes to it. It's not really like obsession, but he's interested in someone who does not like him back. And what is the drama and the conflict of that? And on top of that, he's doing Spider-Man stuff, and we get introduced to characters that are part of this go round. And if you're only here for the Avengers, plug-in, there's plenty of that too. I think the spoiler of one of the major characters in this movie is interesting. If anything, that's something that I really wish it wasn't the case. Like, I think if you take that away from this movie, I like it a bit more. It feels like it's just, pumping the next thing up. And that's basically what I was thinking when most of the third act was happening. Like, all right, so what does this mean moving forward? and I stopped thinking about, oh, what's going on with Spider-Man and what does this mean for Spider-Man moving forward? It was more like, oh, these these characters that have been introduced, this is definitely a thing for a future thing. What does that mean? And it's kind of a distraction, but listen, there's something for everyone in this movie, and I think that when it comes to summer movies, this is probably the last go round, the last weekend before some people have school starting this week, so it's kind of the last hurrah. Grace's Destin Daniel Cretton, though, dude is able to make some B tier characters really interesting. Wish he would have got to do Wonder Man season 2, excuse me. But I'm interested to seeing what he does next. Yeah. Has this been the best year for theaters this decade? Yes. Yes. Even, I mean, things can turn around and take an absolute shit. Yes. It's only at 5.6 billion total. So it could still not make, 9 billion back, but every year since COVID, the domestic box office has not hit $9 billion, whereas as of 2019, 11 billion was a common occurrence. And the first couple of years, theaters were closed. You had something like 4 billion or 3 billion, 4 billion, 7 billion, 8. And it's been getting a little bit better, like 8.5. And this year it looked strong, and things like Obsession were helping. Obsession, Backrooms. Don't sleep on these movies that you don't need to drop $200 million into. It's wild that the box office is doing well for an after COVID era, but you're not getting help from things like Minions. You're not getting help from things like Supergirl. You're having these darlings like Obsession and Backrooms, who are, just making ridiculous amounts of money on very small budgets, which I think if I were to hope that the studios can learn anything from this is you don't need to drop $250 million in things. But I can't help but think they're going to learn some of the worst lessons from this. They're going to say, especially Sony, they're probably going to reinvigorate their Morbius, Madam Web universe, because people want this universe. No, they want Spider-Man. I was pleasantly surprised the first live-action Spider-Man I've enjoyed since Spider-Man 2. Yeah, I need to rewatch the modern era ones, but I liked 2/3 of it. 2019, but that was pre-COVID. Right. So COVID, 2020, the theaters closed. I think it was 2 billion, but that was only for like 3 months worth of stuff. It was 3 billion in 21, 4 billion in 22, 7 billion in 23, 8 in 24, 8 in 25, and it was on pace for close to 9 for 26. But with this, it's on pace for 10, and the only thing that kind of pulls that back is the big heavy hitters, the Dune 3 and Avengers Doomsday. They stop counting towards 2026 after they've been out for 2 weeks. They're only out the end of December, and then those numbers don't count towards 2026. But even with that, the numbers are on pace to cross 10 billion, and that will be the first time since 2019. I mean, it'd be wild if something else became a big deal. Like, is it strange to think maybe Clayface can make 250? Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do with DC. I don't know how to judge that and gauge any of that anymore, because I just don't know. But if they do Doomsday or Doomsday, a la Barbenheimer, and if it's anything close to this, they might clear 11 billion domestic. And I don't know, maybe different trailers or something comes out in regards to Avengers Doomsday that it's one of those things where maybe people are just gonna go in droves. It may not be 972 million worldwide, but, um, it's one of those you had Force Awakens, which was a big deal. The next movie after that, Last Jedi, big deal, but it had a big drop off. So maybe people will be like, "All right, I'll go opening weekend," and then what does word of mouth do to that movie moving forward? But I think it could be, Avengers Endgame Avengers Doomsday worldwide should be somewhere between 5 and 750 worldwide opening weekend. Um, and the big thing about that is it's, around Christmas time and people are home, it's cold, more reasons to go to the theater, right now, especially if it's like your last hurrah, if you're like going to school next week or something. Maybe you want to go to the beach or something. I do not have faith in practical magic too. You've got me there. Easy, easy 250 million. I actually I don't know, but it's wild. Um, it, it's the year is doing well in spite of a bunch of movies really missing. Movies that you would be like, oh, what do you think, 300 million, and it's just 50. Um, again, if the studios can learn the right lessons from this and not be like, oh, people just want more cape shit. Um, Obsession, it made so much, what, 400 times its budget back. Backrooms, creativity, and not expensive creativity goes a long way. I really wish we could get back to like mid-budgeted movies that just, you make something for 50 million, it makes 120, and you're okay with that. Um, that would be a swell time. But again, back to the differences of the biggest opening weekends here. The difference between the anomaly here is the Fate of the Furious, because that was the eighth one, and there's 10 now. Harry Potter, the culmination. Jurassic World, a reset. Star Wars, a reset. Endgame, Infinity War, a culmination. Captain Marvel is kind of an in-betweener type thing. But on top of Endgame and Infinity War, you have Brand New Day and No Way Home. No Way Home, that was just that was either what, right before or right after Doctor Strange. All of the post-COVID stuff for Marvel was kind of um, disappointing by 2018 standards. So I think there's something to be said for Spider-Man being able to like be this impressive, without needing to be the beginning of something new. Or although technically, Brand New Day is probably something new, even though it's all the same characters. It's a character reset of sorts. But No Way Home, it was just another movie in the series. So it's something really fascinating here that the Spider-Man character just works and doesn't need to have a gimmick of it being the first thing back or the culmination of some sort of events of multiple movies. Uh, Jacob says, "Whoa, Captain Marvel performed well. I thought Woke was supposed to go broke." Yes, but don't forget that Captain Marvel was in between the two Avengers movies, so maybe there's some sort of Avengers bridge to that. Studios' takeaway from Obsession is we need to franchise this and we need to rip this off. Yep, yep. The One Wish Willow cinematic universe is coming after us in due time. Yeah, so I just wanted to get here and do a quick thing because it's absolutely fascinating. For as much doom and gloom as we've talked about, and on this series talked about, theaters are in trouble. Um, maybe they're not. I think, if anything, the message that this should send is Spider-Man is perhaps stronger than Marvel. Uh, Granted, it's not stronger than the Avengers movie, but who was in the Avengers movies but Spider-Man? So Spider-Man could be the biggest character that Marvel has, and it's not technically a Marvel MCU character. So I don't think after this weekend, I don't think Sony's going to be um, playing ball the same way with Marvel as far as their little handshake deal is concerned. Um, Incredible Hulk works great as a featured character. Maybe we don't need a Universal Hulk movie, but there's something to be said for. I mean, we'll see what the drop off is this weekend. It's hard to imagine that Spider-Man won't hit 2 billion. Like, that would be some steep drop off if it doesn't cross 2 billion now, because the last one, Far From Home, I think it was 1.95 billion, and adjusted for inflation, that's probably over two. So it's fascinating. Um, I'm kind of excited for the house on Oak Street, but I don't think that's a $500 million property. But there's some glimmer there. For as much as there's been misses, when the hits hit, people are telling studios, yeah, we'd like to see movies in the theater, but they've got to be worth it. Um, Before I go, let me check the poll. I asked you guys which movie will have a bigger opening weekend. You could technically cheat because you have one of the numbers. 75% of you said Spider-Man Brand New Day. 25% of you said Avengers Doomsday. And that kind of goes to my point that Spider-Man is perhaps the biggest draw at the box office of any superhero character. Let me know your thoughts down below. Click like and subscribe and all that jazz. I'll see you soon.